as a result of
Deep thought.
this contact between whatever we want to call this Christian Jewish tradition with these Greek philosophical kind of early physics. I mean, there was some Greek who, at least in the Western tradition, was the first one to come up with the concept of the atom. And
Hmm.
I think Aristotle dabbles in some of that as well. That contact between the two led Christianity and then Islam and Jewish to come up with concepts that, according to biblical scholars, did not previously exist. So, for example,
Hmm.
they came up with concepts like infinity, and they came
Hmm.
up with concepts like all knowing, and just concepts that are
Hmm.
really interesting,
Hmm.
and you can kind of trace them back to
Like
physics.
zero.
Yeah, you can,
Yeah.
and like zero, right?
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
went, oh, and then all this fruitful new ideas emerge. So the
Hmm.
question I have is, will there be such a encounter between the spiritual and all these new quantum physics ideas, and
The
how will
science.
that, I don't even know how to ask a sophisticated enough question. So my assumption is that at some point, uh, common man and common man's understanding of itself will have to confront these other things,
These other ideas.
and
Yeah.
and then a new revelation
Hmm.
will occur.
Yeah. I mean, I tried to come up with a label for what I've been doing, for 25 years, right? And so um, back 5 years ago, I wrote this book called Deep Reality, and I coined the term. And this was a co-authored with Bill Tiller, the famous Bill Tiller,
Oh,
and now he's passed away since the book was released. And and I came up with the term source science because I didn't want to use the term spirited science. I wanted to have source as the source of everything, which includes the subjective and the objective, right? I wanted to do physics and I wanted to do the subjective. I mean, I knew metaphysics existed, and yet it was informational more than it was energetic to me because remote viewing, attention, consciousness, memory, all of these things that that survival, of consciousness, all these ideas didn't have any place in physics. So there's this subjective side of metaphysics and the objective side of physics. And so by going to this common bit physics representation, all of a sudden I stumbled naturally on a mathematical way that's common for both of them. It turns out that much of modern physics now, all the quantum field theory stuff, and all the people who are working on it are using they're using 8 dimensional, they're using octonions, 8 dimensional math, and they're using a mathematical construct called spinors. And these are all using geometric algebra and Clifford algebras also. Spinners for Beginners is a 22 episode physics mathematical treatise on spinners and how you can do all of physics using these spinners, and it defines all the particles and all the spin one half particles, all the spin one particles. It's, I mean, I ran
what
into
about,
this and
is
I,
there a Schrodinger's equation version of the spinners?
well, the spinners are more for particles than they are for
Hmm.
quantum computing.
Hmm.
And so, but the question is, does it handle space-time geometry as well, like Minkowski space? And the answer is yes. So they have a Dirac spinner, and just like there's Dirac's equation, which is a generalized version of Schrodinger's equation, right? So they're trying to include quantum computing, quantum ideas, and relativistic ideas. So spinners, there is a Dirac spinner, which is a space-time version of that. So
So are you saying, because you said this in response to Carmen's question, and I'm trying to draw the relationship between
yeah,
your answer and Carmen's question. I think it's clear to you, but are you saying that this sort of spinner approach that you discovered, not that you discovered the spinner approach, but that you discovered an
I
approach that
found that it was in my system. It turns out.
it was within your system, but that your system actually what comes out of it is an ability to do math both about the inner and the subjective and objective?
Yes, yes,
Okay, so that is the sacred thing. I mean, that
yes,
gets
yes.
at the sort of unified. Like I'm a what are they called? Unified monist or something. I don't know. I
Yeah.
believe that there's one thing
Yeah. There's
from which
oneness.
everything
Yeah.
comes.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's like a sacred thing. So how can you describe, and
Okay.
maybe we need to help you with this,
Yeah.
but I think it's worth an effort. How can you describe what a mathematics of the internal, because we have so much inner space that is so powerful in terms of creating what happens in the world
Mhm.
that we're just beginning to understand at the very, very kindergarten level that our inner space actually has a physical impact. What what is it? How can we help you make a metaphor to describe how there can be a mathematics of that inner space and what that can
Yeah.
get for you?
Yeah. Well, the the key construct is here is that there are a large number of dimensions to the universe. So we know that these dimensional spaces exist and they act like a computational resource if you want to think about it that way, because you can do things in a linearly independent way in a space that has these dimensions that you can't do if you don't have those dimensions. So the best we can say about like artificial intelligence right now is it's simulating a high dimensional space, which is its large language model's data store. It's simulating the weights between all of these nodes in their large language model as if it was a high dimensional space. It's simulated, though, inside 3 dimensions. But what if you actually had a high dimensional space to run that on? And I think that's what the mind and consciousness is. It's actually running on a real high dimensional space, because the real high dimensional space does exist. But it's, you say, well, what is it, Doug? Again, it's a representational issue. It's a mathematical thing that exists before space, time, matter, and energy exists.
Yeah. Mhm.
So I call the Big Bang a bit bang, because you have these infinite number of dimensions, and all of a sudden they coalesce to form our physical universe.